A Vinton County grand jury today has issued indictments in 3 criminal cases involving sexual abuse and child endangerment.
Gary and Elizabeth Ciers accused of sexually abusing a child together, as 2 of their family members also face.
A Benton County grand jury has issued indictments in 3 criminal cases involving sexual abuse and child abuse. That is the dry language of a public record. But what sits behind that single sentence is not dry at all.
Warrant.
These cases began as an investigation into family child sex abuse. Law enforcement sought the DNA of Gary Ciers Jr. related to the child sex abuse case. Once Ciers Jr. was located, search warrants were executed to secure his DNA for genetic testing. Upon serving the search warrants for the child sex abuse case, the existence and condition of the 16 children at the Omar.
The prosecutor said it plainly law enforcement went looking for Gary Ciers Jr.'s DNA. They had a warrant. They wanted genetic testing. And when they served that warrant on June 30th, they walked into a house on Omar Street and found something no one on that block expected. 16 children, ranging in age from 1.5 to 18, in conditions bad enough that the state immediately opened a separate child endangerment investigation.
Omar Street house became known. The child sex abuse cases involve intra-family relations and do not pose a risk to the general.
Now picture what that scene actually looked like. Not the abstraction of 16 kids in a house. Picture a single doorknob. A front door on Omar Street that law enforcement touched at the exact moment the warrant went from being about one man's DNA to being about an entire family's collapse.
Clerks calling authorities with concerns over children they observed. We ask the public to be mindful of the circumstances around them, especially.
The case began because Dollar General clerks saw something. They picked up a phone. They called authorities. That is the entire origin point of this investigation. Not a federal task force, not an undercover operation. Retail workers in a discount store who noticed something wrong about the children walking through their aisles.
Kane.
A grand jury today has issued indictments in 3 criminal cases involving sexual abuse and child endangerment. These charges stem from criminal investigations conducted by the Vinton County Sheriff's Office and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations, BCI. The cases are being prosecuted by the Vinton County Prosecutor's Office with the assistance from the Highland County Prosecutor's Office and the Ohio Attorney General's Special.
Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Court, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The Vinton County Sheriff confirmed that BCI opened the first investigation in December of 2025. 2 children, allegations of sexual abuse.
Unit opened an investigation into allegations of sexual abuse involving 2 children. Information obtained in this investigation prompted BCI in March of 26 to open a second investigation, this one involving allegations of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. On June 30th, authorities executed a search warrant at a residence in Hamden, Ohio, and Vinton County on Omar.
That first investigation did not start with the Ciers family. It started with 2 other men. 23-year-old Josh Saunders, 40-year-old Brandon Henderson. And here is where the family tree starts to splinter. Saunders is Gary Ciers Jr.'s nephew. Henderson is the longtime boyfriend of Gary Jr.'s sister, Virginia.
While Virginia Saunders has been with Brandon Henderson for many years, she is still legally married to Josh Saunders' father. Records show that Joshua Saunders and Virginia Saunders were married in April 2003 in Gallia County, but Joshua Saunders Jr. is actually serving time in an Ohio prison for murder. He's been behind bars since 2009. In 2016, Virginia Saunders described Brandon Henderson on Facebook as her soulmate and her other half.
Virginia Saunders has been with Brandon Henderson for years. She is still legally married to Joshua Saunders. Stir records show that marriage happened in April 2003 in Gallia County. And Joshua Saunders' sister is currently serving time in an Ohio prison for murder. He has been behind bars since 2009.
Yeah, this case just gets more complicated and complex all the time.
Complicated, complex, and disturbing. More disturbing than we originally thought. I think you and I both suspected when BCI was involved in this, there might be a sex crimes aspect to this. But now we're learning that there are extended family members to the Ciers who have now been indicted on sex crimes charges. Those are Brandon Henderson and Josh Saunders.
Special Prosecutor Mark Weaver said what everyone watching this case was already thinking: complicated, complex, and disturbing. More disturbing than originally thought, because the first investigation did not touch the Ciers children, it touched children connected to the extended family. Then BCI opened a second investigation in March of 2026.
And it does appear now, in my reading of all of the documents and all of the records and the press releases and piecing this all together, that we have 3 victims here. We have 2 initial victims in investigation 1, and then 1 victim in investigation 2, and that is the victim involving Gary Ciers Jr. and Elizabeth Ciers. And so they went to the house looking for Gary Ciers Jr.'s DNA.
That second investigation involved 1 victim, a minor, related to Gary Ciers Jr. and Elizabeth Ciers, and prosecutors have now confirmed there are 3 victims total across both investigations. The paperwork already knew.
For genetic testing. Mark, what does that tell you? I mean, that says to me, I'm wondering if the victim in this case became pregnant.
That's possible, although that's not one of the elements of any of these crimes. As I mentioned, one of the elements, certainly for sexual battery, is whether or not you're a parent or acting in the role of a parent of somebody, and you would have sexual activity with that child. That could have been the reason. We now know, you mentioned the 3 victims. Those are in addition to, obviously, the numerous children who were found, 16 children found, who are all their own kind of victims in the first piece of this iceberg that we looked at.
Mm-hmm. And so why else would they go for genetic testing for Gary Jr.? I mean, they went there on June 30th with a warrant for genetic DNA for genetic testing. Is there any other reason that they would do that?
Here is the unanswered question that turns this from a legal filing into a thriller. Why did investigators need Gary Ciers Jr.'s DNA for genetic testing? Was it to match physical evidence left behind? Or was it because the victim in this case may have given birth? What happens next depends entirely on which answer is true.
So the genetic testing could be, I have physical evidence to prove this. I have an item of clothing or a piece of bedding with, possible DNA evidence on it, or it could be a potential pregnancy.
Yeah, it's either wanting to match somebody to DNA that we already have as part of the investigation, or to find a relationship issue so that the element of being a parent could be added to a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Either the state has an article of clothing or bedding with possible DNA evidence on it, or the state is building towards something far more serious. The distinction is not academic. It changes the entire weight of the case.
There are other children, extended family members of the Ciers, who prosecutors are saying were sexually abused at the hands of Gary and Elizabeth, and what appears to be Gary's nephew, Joshua Saunders, and his brother-in-law, the longtime boyfriend of his sister, Virginia. So this is very disturbing.
Here is what the prosecutor said publicly about the children found in that house. The sexual abuse cases involve intrafamily relations and do not pose a risk to the general public. Read that sentence again. Intrafamily relations. No risk to the public. That is the official framing. The threat was sealed inside that house.
Yeah, it's going to require a lot of investigation, a lot of explanation for these connections. You, of course, were a reporter in Wisconsin, so you're well suited to report on this case, and knowing Ohio as well as you do. This is a crooked, rotten family tree.
Mark Weaver called it what it is: a crooked, rotten family tree. Figuring out which branch got involved with which other branch will be difficult for investigators and prosecutors alike.
Gary Ciers Jr. and Elizabeth Ciers both face sexual battery charges related to a child. They're both charged with that, along with unlawful sexual misconduct or conduct with a minor. So does that, if you're a prosecutor, for Elizabeth to be charged with that, does that mean she was an active participant in this sexual misconduct, or was she simply aware of it?
You have to be more than aware to be guilty of those crimes. If they wanted to charge a complicity charge, they could do that. It's a different way of saying, well, you didn't do it, but you were involved in helping it happen. But to be guilty of the charge, you have to meet all the elements, and simply being aware of it, other than the child endangering piece, which being aware of something that's being done to a child and doing nothing about it, obviously can be child endangering. But for these sex crimes, you have to be guilty of each of the elements of this.
And then there is Elizabeth Ciers. She is charged with sexual battery and unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. But under Ohio law, being aware of abuse is not enough to convict someone of a sex crime. You have to be an active participant. The charges against Elizabeth Ciers are not about what she knew. They are about what prosecutors say she did.
16 Ciers children who are now in therapeutic foster care. Those were all second-degree felonies when they were first charged. Now some of those are second-degree felonies, some are third, some are misdemeanor counts, both for Gary and Elizabeth, and then Grandma and Grandpa. What do you make of those charges being reduced in some respects? I mean, they're still charged with it, and they're innocent until proven guilty, but they're not all F2s anymore.
Yeah, the difference in these charges is the damage done to the victim. And so the more damage, the higher potential to get up to the F2, which is up to 8 years in prison. There's also a misdemeanor level, child endangerment. I've seen those cases. I've worked on those cases. Careless parent allows a child to sort of run outside into the street, a 3-year-old or something. That's typically a misdemeanor child endangerment. Nothing bad happened, but the parent was being careless. So remember, prosecutors have to prove the level of injury, either psychological or physical, to the victim in order to match that level.
16 Ciers children are now in therapeutic foster care. The child endangerment charges against Gary and Elizabeth originally came in as second-degree felonies. Now some have been reduced, some are third-degree, some are misdemeanors. The difference is the damage done to the victim. More damage, higher charge. Less damage, lower charge. That reduction is a legal calculation, not a sign of innocence.
The wife for Joey Russell, the brother of Elizabeth Ciers, posted on Facebook that if the allegations about Elizabeth are proven true, that they are basically done with Elizabeth, that you cannot harm children. And the attorney for Gary Ciers Sr. issued a statement saying, what we do know is that the original complaint filed against Mr. Ciers Sr. charged him with 17 felonies of the second degree. The amended complaint filed 2 days later listed 16 felonies of the second degree, and the indictment just handed down by the grand.
The family is already fracturing in public. Elizabeth Ciers' sister-in-law posted that if the allegations are proven true, they are done with Elizabeth. You cannot harm children, she wrote. Meanwhile, the attorney for Gary Ciers Sr. is already attacking the indictment process itself. The paperwork already knew.
Jury, in a process where the defense has no ability to participate or present evidence whatsoever, handed down only 10 felonies of the lesser third degree and 6 misdemeanor counts. It is certainly interesting that over a span of a month and a half, the number and severity of the charges against Mr. Ciers Sr. has already continued to decrease significantly, with the state already admitting that further investigation continues to be necessary and ongoing.
Gary Ciers Sr.'s attorney pointed out that his client originally faced 17 second-degree felonies. That number dropped to 16. Then the grand jury handed down only 10 third-degree felonies and 6 misdemeanors. The severity of the charges decreased significantly over a month and a half. The defense calls that interesting. The state calls it ongoing investigation.
That's that level of crime.
The Attorney General has said, we're not done yet. This investigation is still underway. So do you see more charges coming, or do you think this is it and they're just still kind of dotting their I's and crossing their T's?
I know Attorney General Wilson. He's a career prosecutor. I don't think he would have said that if it were true. This does bring to mind another case that you covered and that many of your viewers have watched out of Ohio, out of southern Ohio, which was the Pike County murder case, which continues.
Attorney General Dave Yost has said publicly, we're not done yet. Mark Weaver, who knows Yost as a career prosecutor, said he would not say that if it were not true. This case may still be in its early stages. The Pike County murder case took months just to sort out who was responsible. This could follow the same trajectory.
And ongoing, and the defense's investigation still yet to truly begin in earnest. And we're going to continue to follow this case and bring you the latest information.
The state has admitted that further investigation continues to be necessary and ongoing. The defense has not yet begun its own investigation in earnest. That asymmetry should tell you everything about where this case currently stands. The paperwork already knew.
As soon as we get it. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
Go rid the Benton County Grand Jury indictment yourself. It is public record. And then answer this question in the comments. If law enforcement needed DNA for genetic testing, what exactly were they trying to prove? If you found this breakdown useful, like this video, share it, subscribe to True Crime Court, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next filing.